Hey guys, welcome to the I Hope to Hear This podcast. Today I have with me, I almost said a returning guest, but I realized this is the first time I'm a podcast, huh?
Yeah, it's the first time.
I think I thought it was you've been here multiple times because I've heard you on like other podcasts. Yes. And I feel like when we talk, you're also a very intentional conversationalist.
Okay.
So it feels like I'm doing a podcast.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But one thing that I think is cool about like our relationship, my relationship with Joojin is one of the first and only people that like we were acquaintances, kind of.
Oh yeah.
We kind of knew each other, but then like we like reached out to like form a relationship with. And I was always skeptical of that approach of friendship, but like it's turning out that it's been pretty great.
Yeah, I think we first met through like Servants Network.
Yeah.
And we're just like, oh hey, like Joe, I know Joe.
Yeah.
Hi.
Joe Song.
Yeah, Joe Song. Yeah.
And we've had certain touch points. One crazy one was we were both at the same work conference in Vegas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was like I think 2015.
Yeah, a while ago. I was in a big conference room, just waiting for the presentation to start, and I get a Facebook message from Joojin. Hey, are you in Vegas? I was like, oh yeah. How did you know? He goes, turn around. Sure enough.
Oh, I don't even remember like how that happened. I just remember seeing you and then like, oh, like there's somebody I know.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And in getting to know each other, it's because our kids are kind of similar age.
Yeah.
We kind of live in the same area now, and so we will occasionally get our families together and hang out. And was it the last time? No, it was the first time we hung out where Angie, your wife, told the story of kind of it almost sounds like a personality change, like a Christ-led transformation,
redemption.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of hear more about that. I invited you to have this conversation today. So let's take it from the start. I think it's interesting, like from like college, right? Where you were, and then how you ended up in Georgia.
Yeah.
And then like your mindset and all that, like during that time.
Yeah. I went to Cornell University, which is like in upstate New York. It's like middle of nowhere, right? And then
it's the Ivy League, right?
Yeah, it is. And so I went there for like their hospitality program, and then just kind of to go a little bit further back than that. Like I grew up in like California, Orange County, and then to be honest, like I wasn't like the smartest kid or anything like that, and I never saw myself to be. But at the time though, in my senior year, I was like working at a hotel, full-time actually, while working at school or while doing full-time school. And then one of my coworker was actually a Cornell student who was also working kind of like part-time, and she like encouraged me to like, hey, you should apply. And I'm like, no way, my GPAs aren't that great, like I don't think I'm the smartest of the bunch, and this is like Ivy League, I don't even that's not even my dream school because it's like so beyond my reach. But then I ended up applying because she kept pushing me to do so, and then I got in like by grace of God, because like, and everybody, like all of my peers and all of my friends were shocked that I got in because I wasn't the smartest person in the room. But yeah, I think I just kind of took that as a sign like God wants me to be there. And actually it turned out to be cheaper than what my dream school was, which was USC, University of Southern California.
Okay.
So I ended up going to Cornell just simply because it was cheaper.
Wow.
And honestly, the thought of going to upstate New York with snow and like all that, like I was not really excited about it. But it was just like it was cheaper to go, so I did. And at the time at Cornell, it's like I thought I was like, I didn't think I was the smartest, but I also didn't think I was the dumbest. But then when I went to Cornell, these are like people like the smartest of the smarts, like from across the world. Right. And when you have all these brilliant minds in one place, like I felt like such an idiot. Like the whole 4 years, I felt like such an idiot. And then, but I think over those 4 years, I think like I've kind of, like unbeknownst to me, my personality kind of became a little bit more arrogant, a little bit more prideful, because like
now you're fitting in with the best of the best,
right? And then and I think it's just like when there's that much pressure of all these like smart folks, and then like a lot of my peers were like sons and daughters of like CEOs and sons and daughters of like really rich or famous folks. And so yeah, unbeknownst to me, I became very prideful and very like arrogant, and I think like yeah, like I think there's a part of me that's like, oh, I'm Ivy League, like oh, but you know, but so yeah, that was kind of like brewing. And then so when it came time for graduation, most of my close buddies, they all ended up with jobs in like Boston and DC area. So I was applying to a bunch of jobs there so that I can hopefully, you know, be with like my friends at the when we graduate. But unfortunately, I was like the only job offer that I got was from Atlanta. And I was like, oh, what the heck? I don't want to go to like the South. Like I don't know anyone there, and I don't like all my friends are gonna be up in the Northeast. So I was like really not looking forward to it, but I would rather have a job than be unemployed.
Yeah.
So at the time I like took the job.
So when was that? Like when you were about to graduate, what year was that?
So I graduated 2013.
Okay.
So yeah, I graduated like late May, and I barely had like a week and a half of like break, and then I started my job down here in like early June. And so I moved down here. I didn't know anybody. Well, my sister was here at the time, but she was in Duluth, and my work was in Atlanta, and she had at the time. I mean, she still does, but she has 3 kids, and so like her social circle is like just very different from what I needed. So
So if she had 3 kids when you had just graduated college, is there a pretty significant age difference?
yeah, well, no, she's only 5 years older, but she got married really early.
5 years is still pretty big.
Yeah, and so so yeah, she was hanging out with like ajumas and like other ajumas with other kids, like little toddlers, and so she didn't really have anybody to like connect me with, you know. So basically, I was like by myself, right? And then so I came down here, and I absolutely hated it after like the first several months because
And you know, I can relate to kind of your whole view of what Georgia would be like, because like you mentioned you were in Orange County, right? I grew up in Torrance. So but I moved when I was in like 6th grade.
Yeah.
In 2000, like right at before the year 2000.
yeah.
So literally the only thing people knew about Atlanta was, oh, the Olympics were there, and like nothing else. You know, like some hick town in the South.
Right. People thought it was like the boonies.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like the South.
Right.
And so I remember like I showed a picture of Atlanta to like one of my friends, and they're like, "Whoa, you guys have skyscrapers?" I'm like, "Yeah." But anyway, yeah. So at first I hated it because like the humidity, because I came here in the summer, like all the flying cockroaches that were in the neighborhood. And then like what was like the most bizarre to me was like everyone was so nice. And I think just having spent the last 4 years in like upstate New York with these like arrogant, prideful, like rich, snobby kids, like I was like, what is wrong with these people? Why are they so nice to me? And to me, I started being very like defense, like putting up kind of a wall defense mode, because I thought, okay, they want something from me. Like I don't know what it is, but they want something. Because like back in Cornell, if somebody was like nice to you, it's because they want to see your homework, or like they want like your help on the test, or like whatever, right? There's always it's very transactional.
Yeah.
And so when you know, some of the first folks that I met here was like Pastor Joe and Grace, and they were just like so nice, and everyone at church was so nice. I was like, what do you guys want from me? And it was just like really weird. And so so yeah, and then when I first came, I met a bunch of like young adults like myself, and like I found out, you know, a lot of the folks here that grew up in Georgia, went to school in Georgia, they never moved out, and they're still living with their parents. So I think there was a part of me, like the prideful part of me, that's like, oh my gosh, you still live with your parents? Like, like what? Come on, man, you're like 20 something, and then so
and you never left your state.
And then so like there was a part like an arrogance to myself where I was like basically looking down on them, like I'm better than you. And so and also the fact that everyone was so nice to me, I was like, why are you so nice? Like, and so yeah, there was just a lot of arrogance in me and a lot of like pridefulness in me coming down here. But it's funny because like I still kept going to the church because like with the small groups that we had, because they always had free food. And for me, like, you know, I was living here by myself, no roommates, like nothing. And, you know, first job out of college, the pay wasn't that great. And so, you know, like I was like barely getting by, like paycheck to paycheck. And so like anytime there's free food, I'm there. So so I started going out to church.
Was it also the fact that it was free Korean food?
Well, it was just like it's just like random snacks.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it wasn't Korean food necessarily. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, ultimately I just came down here with just a lot of arrogance and a lot of pride, and God used that to like humble me like real hard. Yeah.
Were you a believer before? Like
Yeah.
while all this arrogance was kind of building?
I was, and actually I was serving at our college ministry, our college campus ministry at Cornell during my upperclassmen years, and I think in retrospect I see that I was still very naive and an idiot, but like, but at the time, graduating Ivy League, senior, like whatever, and I served in the church for a couple of years. I was like, oh man, my faith is good. Like, yeah, my faith is good. And then, when I initially had the desire to like end up in Boston or DC with my friends, I was like, oh, I need my, my brothers in Christ to like be with me so that I can continue to maintain this faith and like be strong and like all that. And then so yeah, I did. I considered myself a Christian, but I think just the way I was living that life was definitely not. Not the ideal Christian life. Because at the time I was also like smoking a lot, and I think being here, being all lonely, it actually made it like worse. So yeah, definitely not. And I would like actually show up to like Bible study like reeking of cigarettes.
Were you like aware? Was that kind of intentional, you think, or?
I was just kind of in a very like I don't give a F mode, because like in my mind I hated being there. I wanted to get the heck out. And so what I told myself at the time was, I'm just gonna stay, and I had hated my job too. So what I told myself was, I'm just gonna be here for 1 week, just get 1 year under my belt so that it looks good on my resume. And then I'm gonna find a new job, and I'm gonna get out of here like forever, because I hate this place. I hate the people. I hate the weather. Like I hate all the trees. Like I hate all the roads. How the roads don't make sense. People don't know how to drive, and so yeah, my mindset was just, I'm gonna get out of here in a year. So I definitely like did not try to invest in any relationships whatsoever. And even when people did try, like Angie and Joe and Grace, like I would like push them away and put up a wall. Because again, it kind of went back to this mentality of like, I'm better than you. I'm leaving. And I don't know what you want from me, but you're not gonna have it. Like,
whatever it is you're trying to get from me.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you go through that a lot then? Because or is that just something how the whole everyone has an ulterior motive mentality? Was it learned through experience, or is it just kind of, oh, I think that's how the world works?
I think a little bit of both, because I think during college, that's when I did realize like a lot of people are very manipulative. They just and I think when you have like a small town where it's some of the world's like wealthiest and like smartest people, like they can be very conniving and like very manipulative to get what they want. And I mean, of course, I did make true friends throughout, but I've just come across a lot of those kind of folks where they are like that. And so I think I was just kind of being preemptively defensive when I came down here. And so yeah, I think that's why it kind of like changed my mentality after college.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So your decision to come down here was because this is like the only place you got a job, right?
Right. Yeah.
But what made you even apply to a place in Atlanta?
Oh, I think so. It was like one of those like corporate recruiting thing. It's like hey, give me your preference cities, and then they'll match me with whatever has availability and what So I always put like DC and Boston as my top, but I did put Atlanta as kind of like my backup of backup, because my sister was here. So it's like at least there's like one person, and but then while I was applying to that, I didn't realize that how unhelpful that would be, at least in terms of my like social my ability to like get friends and things like that. Yeah.
Because you were thinking, I mean, my sister's there. You might be able to join her community.
Yeah.
But she's in a completely different life stage than you. So
yeah. And she was in Duluth and I was in Atlanta. So, the distance didn't really help either.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Back then, was there a lot of Korean food in Duluth? Do you
I
remember?
think there was.
there?
Yeah,
Okay,
2013. Yeah.
okay, because
Like Duluth was the hot spot, but now I feel like it's more like Swanee.
you're right.
Yeah.
It's moving up,
Yeah,
like,
it's
north
moving,
a little
yeah,
bit. Yeah, because that's what happened before Duluth got turned into the hotspot.
Yeah.
It was like
Doraville,
Beaver Highway,
yeah.
Doraville. Yeah. Oh, okay, wow. So here is this Joojin who's reeking of smoke, being all like shut off from like everyone at church.
Uh-huh.
So what happens to turn you from that guy into the person that sits before us today?
Yeah, so like Pastor Joe was really that turning point, and they've told me, after the fact, like every time I came to like Bible study and stuff, I would like literally come, reek of smoke, say nothing, sit there in silence, eat the snacks, and then as soon as like prayer's done, how people usually kind of linger and like hang out, but I just like I just dipped out right away. And then so Joe would ask like everyone like, why does that guy even come here? Because I've been doing that for like months. And then I think at a certain point, because Joe was like the lead of the ministry, of the young adult ministry, he like, I guess something tugged at his heart, and he pulled me aside, and he was like, hey, like I want to invite you out to dinner. Are you down to go have dinner with me? I was like, yeah, sure, because like free food, right?
Yeah.
So
Dang, if you the way to Joojin's heart is free food.
Yeah. And then so he took me to this like pizza place in Sandy Springs. I don't know if it still exists. And I forgot, what we generally talked about, but at the end of the dinner, at the end of the meal, he asked me very bluntly, like, hey, do you love God? And then my first initial reaction to that question was like, who does this guy think he is? Of course I love God. Like, I'm a Christian. I've grown up Christian. And like he doesn't know me. Like, how dare he ask me that? And like, I started being very, I started thinking very like defensive and defensively. And I just started getting like really angry, like upset at like, who is this guy? Like, and then I was like, yeah, like, duh, like, of course I do. And then he like this next question was like the mic drop moment for me, because and then he's like, well, then why don't you act like it? And then like, this is guy I've known for just a couple months at this point. I think like maybe a little less than half a year. And I was just so like taken aback by like the bluntness of that. And then I was like, what the heck? Like, how dare, and I don't know. I was just like trying to like figure out like, okay, like some kind of an answer, or like some witty answer or something, but like in my trying to be, defend myself, but like I couldn't like think of anything.
Yeah.
And then he brought up a great point that I don't really act like one. And I think to add a little bit more context to that, like I grew up in the church and all that, and I was very I did a praise team for like several years from like junior high to high school, but actually towards the end of high school I started getting further and further away from church, because the hypocrisy of a lot of the praise team members that I served with. And so like, for example, in high school when I served on praise team, after praise team practice, people would go to like 노래방, drink 술, 담배 펴, like smoke, and talk about all these like non-Christianly things,
Right.
And it used to bother the heck out of me. And like for me, instead of joining them on doing like the drinking and the smoking and all of that, I was just like really turned off. I was like, okay, on Saturday nights you're like partying, drinking, smoking, and then on Sunday afternoon you're like raising your hand and closing your eyes and like leading worship. And so that the hypocrisy of it really bothered me, and so I started to like drift away. And so I think, and then so when Joe asked me that question, and when Joe brought this light upon my hypocrisy of myself, I thought of like that and how that really deterred me from church and just from God in general. And so that really hit me hard, and I just started like crying there, like in the middle of the restaurant. And like it wasn't even like like just little tears. I was like bawling. I was like and then like when you're trying to like hold back your tears, it's like even worse,
right? And your body's
shaking. And then I was just so embarrassed. I'm a big guy, and I barely know this guy Joe. and I'm crying in like the middle of a restaurant. I was like so embarrassed, and I was trying to like stop myself. And I think, to be honest, I think Joe was also a little freaked out too,
Yeah.
because I don't think he ever expected such a response
Yeah.
from this emo dude that that reeks of smoke.
Wait, so just so the listeners can get an image, how tall are you? Like,
I'm 6'3" and
Yeah,
like
6'3".
220, 230 pounds.
and Pastor Joe, like probably like 5'8", 5'9", right?
Yeah.
And so like I can just see like,
Yeah. And then I remember like he was trying to like comfort me as like my pastor, but at the same time, Joe's not very like affectionate
yeah,
either.
he's
So
very no nonsense.
yeah, so it's
straightforward.
not like he's gonna give me a hug or anything. So he
Right.
was just like very awkwardly like putting his hand on like my back and like
Uh-huh.
it's okay. Like I don't know, like his efforts to comfort me was like not very good. Because I think it freaked him out too.
And you didn't feel any comfort from him.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
And I was just, if anything, I was more so embarrassed of crying in public. So I just like I ran to the bathroom, and then I once I kind of like regained my composure, I just like came out, and I was just like, hey, thanks for the food, but I'm gonna go. I'll see you on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And then so I started walking out, and I was like walking toward my car, and then like Joe like stopped me, like Korean drama style, like wait. I was already like way over there by my car.
Was it raining?
That would have been perfect. But yeah, he stopped me, and he's just like, hey, can I pray for you? And I was like, okay, sure. And then so he took me to his like car, and then like we sat inside the car, and then he like prayed for me. And I don't know what exact I forgot what he prayed for exactly, but I just remember like, yeah, like just kind of this like wave of like guilt and shame, and just like, wow, I've been like living like such a arrogant, hateful, cocky person, and yet I'm flaunting around saying I'm a Christian and I love God and like all of that. And so yeah, it just like really broke me down. And then it's funny because like at first I thought Joe was like the rudest person in the world, and but like that's what like that bluntness is what like gave me that spiritual slap in the face to like wake me up and just kind of get me back into like, okay, like so then how do I really live as a Christian? And so
then prior to that spiritual slap in the face, were you aware that you were being arrogant and emo and all that?
I wasn't, and I think it's something only I realized in retrospect that
wow.
I was like looking down on everyone. And again, just kind of going back to like that mindset of like, oh, you live with your parents, like, and I was like just being very judgmental without knowing the context or everyone's situation. And yeah, I placed myself above everyone, or in my mind I did. And so yeah, I think only after like that slap in the face, God, I guess kind of like opened my eyes, like truly to see like, dude, you're being really arrogant and prideful. That's not to say like I don't deal with pride now, but like compared to like 2013 Joojin, that was like that proverbial slap in the face that I really needed to like, okay, I need to like get off my high horse and actually act like I follow Christ. So yeah, since then, I moved here like June of 2013, and I believe that conversation happened in like November of 2013. And honestly, after that was kind of like a 180 for me.
Like immediately?
Yeah, 180. And then so I just like started being, I guess I just started opening up more, being a little more vulnerable, like I guess being more receptive to everyone's friendliness and things like that. And then yeah, I guess like to me the transition didn't feel sudden, but according to everyone else, I was like 180 like
Wow.
at the time. And then so it's funny because like right after that I picked up the bass again and rejoined praise team so that I can like serve church. And then I think a couple months later in April, so when I first moved here, Angie really didn't like me and I didn't really like her. But by April of next year, we were dating.
Oh wow.
Because that change was so like drastic
Mm-hmm.
and transformative that like yeah, I became this like emo annoying guy that she didn't really like to be around to obviously now we're married with 2 kids.
Yeah, man, I wish Angie were here because she told the story of like how the church group was going bowling or something, and they like invited you. But wasn't it like they like invited you to be nice, but then you came and you were just kind of sulking the whole time, and
Yeah, that sounds like me.
yeah. So like from that to suddenly being like, oh, I want to join the praise team and all that. Wow, that is a very different.
And then I think this one took a little bit longer, but I think after a couple months of that slap in the face, I quit smoking too for good.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that one was a little bit harder to like shut off
No,
immediately.
for
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
But at the time, I think I had smoked for like 5 years, and then I think by the next spring I was like done. Like, and I haven't picked up a cigarette since then. So
Wow. Hey, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's yeah. My dad used to smoke, so I know how tough that is. So
Yeah.
oh, wow. Wow. So tell me, like, I'm gonna give you some situations. Can you explain to me how emo, or I guess pre 2013 Joojin would have acted, and how the new Joojin would behave? So like, if I were someone at church and I came up to you and said, "Oh, hey, Joojin, nice to meet you. Hey, you wanna go eat with us after service?" Like, how would you have? What were the differences in
Oh,
behavior?
I mean, if you're paying for the food, I would have been there.
Okay, okay.
I don't know. I mean, I can't. I feel like that's like a chapter in my life that I try not to think about too often.
Okay, okay.
Because like I like not only was I in this like arrogant, prideful place, but I was also in a very like depressed state as well. Because like, you know, got this new job in this new city with no friends. I just like I didn't see an end to when this would like this chapter of my life would end. And so I was in a very like depressed state. And so like I guess as an example of that, you know, I come home from work to an apartment by myself. I have no one to call up on the weekends. I have no one to call up on the weekday evenings.
Yeah.
No one to hang out with on Fridays or you know or anything. And so even at church, like I would go for like an hour, but I would just come right home and like literally I had like nothing to do. I would just like sit at home and like not do anything. And so I was in a very like depressed, not healthy state. But yeah, I guess like the difference though is just, I mean, I could fake being nice if needed to be. I did work like a lot of customer facing work at the time. So, but I think it's more of like what would have been going on inside my heart and my mind. Like I would have been probably judging you super hard, like,
Yeah.
you know, in my head versus now, you know, it's now that's not the case.
Yeah. So would you say like your depression during that time was that, or like, would you say you still feel that level of depression, or?
No. I mean, I've definitely outgrown that, but
So do you think the kind of outgrowing of that came with like your transformation, or was that some like a different thing that helped that?
No, I think they are like kind of the one and the same. I was like, you know, to be honest, I was depressed to a point where I was like thinking suicidal thoughts and stuff. And so it was like really, I was in a very not healthy place mentally and just like spiritually. But I think once Joe gave me that slap in the face and I started kind of like self-reflecting and re-examining myself, I realized like I have everything I need here. It's just my attitude that's like, you know, crap. So I really need to fix myself and my attitude. And then so I did. And yeah, and then I started dating Angie, and then this pastor that I thought was really rude and annoying is now officiated our wedding. And, you know, and now we're hanging out on a regular basis. And so it's like, it was just like I think several months or so after that, I realized, wow, God like placed everything I needed here. But for a stupid reason, I was putting up a wall around myself, and I just kind of, it was like my fault that I was in this like sad, depressed, hateful, angry state. It was like totally my fault. And so, yeah, I think once I started like doing that self-examination and just realizing the hypocrisy of it, I was able to get myself out of that like state pretty quickly. And yeah.
You know, that story I think is a great lesson for people coming out of college, because there are a lot of situations, especially Christians who come out of college and they end up in a different city. They kind of by default try to plug themselves into a new church, but unaware to themselves, they might be putting up walls that kind of make it impossible to really get plugged into a community.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you're talking about. So, yeah, I think, man, that's for anyone listening to this who kind of can relate to how Joojin was feeling when he first moved to Atlanta. I think, yeah, don't forget the local church. Like, I think that like getting plugged into a community is huge, right?
Yeah, for sure.
No man is an island, so I think that community aspect shouldn't be overlooked, and I think it's also a big lesson for the local churches as well, because like how much of an effort would you say your church mates put in to like invite you to stuff and to try to like reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did put a lot of effort, and I like. And looking back at it, I'm so thankful for that, because if they did not make that effort, then I would have been like, oh, F this place. Like, and then I would have probably just suffered a lot for like a year, and then probably found a new job, hopefully, and then moved out, and that's the end of it. But and like even like Joe, who's normally very like blunt and like not very like affectionate kind of person, even though he knew that the right thing was to like reach out to this like sad big guy, and so yeah, I really appreciate that they took initiative in that regards, because like without it, I don't think my friendship would have with Angie would have started either. And so
I mean, as a person who goes to church, as a lay leader at my church, we get new people all the time, and to be honest, there are a lot of people who are like very difficult. Like you invite them to things, they come out, but they're just kind of like sitting there. They take no effort to like really engage with the congregation. It's always like us having to like, so it's very easy to, in that situation, to just be like, you know what, they don't want to be here. They want to go somewhere else. Let's just let them go.
Yeah,
like,
that was 100% me. Yeah.
Right. But I think it's potentially we can miss out on a lot. And you don't know what the person is going through. And, like, I feel like the next time I see someone like that at our church, I'm going to be reminded of your story and try to put in that extra effort because, I mean, I've personally never been in that situation where I'm in a completely different city living by myself and, like, no one to reach out to. But at one point in my career, this was my second job. I lived in an apartment by myself away from my parents for the first time. And
like different city?
It was in Sandy Springs.
Oh, okay.
So Dunwoody. So from here, Dunwoody, like 30-minute drive without traffic.
Yeah.
But even then, like because I was there, I felt so isolated.
Yeah.
Because and so like I can only imagine what it would be like to be in a completely different city.
Yeah.
And having to start over from scratch.
Yeah.
So.
It sucked.
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, I'm 31 years now, but I would say like that first year out of college was probably like my most difficult and challenging year of my life. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad that you're here. So I'm actually now interested in hearing about how your relationship with Angie went from like her not liking you, you not not liking each other.
Yeah.
How did that turn into you guys suddenly dating? How many months did that take? 5 months?
From like that conversation with Joe, that was in November, and we started dating end of April. So yeah, I guess about 5-6 months ish. And then so we started dating, and then we dated for 2 years, and then we got married. And so
but before the November though, how long had you known Angie?
So I met her when I first moved here. So I guess, and kind of I guess funny story is that she's my 5th degree friend.
5th degree?
Yeah. So like I didn't know anybody. So so to kind of like trace those steps. So at Cornell, I had a friend named Mike, but he transferred from George Washington University in DC, and at that university, he was friends with Sharon Pei, who originally grew up in Atlanta and was friends with Angie. So that's 4th degree friend. But when I first moved to Atlanta, my friend Mike reached out to Sharon to reach out to Angie and say, hey, I have a friend coming down and he doesn't know anybody. Can you guys like, you know, meet up and just kind of, you know, introduce it to other people and stuff. But at the time so I arrived in the summer of 2013, but Angie was doing a internship in Tennessee. And so because she wasn't physically here, she asked one of her tech friends to meet up with me. And so I technically met and became friends with Angie's friend from tech, Jay. And so when Angie came back after her internship, Jay introduced me to Angie. So through that, it was like a fifth, to Mike, Sharon, Jay, it was like a fifth degree like friend person. And so yeah, we met, and you know,
one tidbit on that, they actually did a study, and they say the entire world, you know, everybody through 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, I heard that. I don't know how true that is, but I heard that.
Apparently, it's like number. Through some sort of mathematical calculation, you can figure that out. So you guys are pretty.
It was a very distant like relationship. And yeah, to be honest, like when I still remember we first met at like Tanmuji in Duluth, and like she was just like not my type. Like, and she knows this. I can say it openly. She was like the kind of the opposite of like my type, just in terms of everything.
So what was your type like?
I mean, like physical appearance. Like I always wanted like somebody like a lot taller, because I'm tall, and then like somebody with like, I think I preferred like smaller eyes, but Angie has really big eyes with Sangapore, and
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I preferred, or at the time.
Yeah,
now it's different. Now it's different. But at the time, right out of college, I preferred like somebody with like smaller eyes with no Sangapore, and you know, things like that. But yeah, and she has big eyes with Sangapore, and just very different.
Double eyelids.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and so very different. But also, she was very like bubbly, and at the time, she was very like extroverted, and to me, like that was draining. So I didn't like to be with bubbly people. And also like again, there was also this perception of like, why is everyone so nice, like calm down, stop, like it was like that kind of mentality. So yeah, my first impression of her wasn't that great, and I think it was the same for her, because you know, I was like smoking and like spitting in front of her, and like I was doing like getting the loogie out, and, and like I wasn't trying to impress her, right? So I didn't care to you know, hide that kind of things from her, because I knew that I was not attracted to her, and I didn't care if she was like, I didn't care what she thought about me. And so I think she was also very turned off by like that, like you know, smoking and spitting and just like not being not being kind. And I was very like sarcastic, and and so
you see that she was very extroverted. Is she not anymore?
She considers herself introverted now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like me, that the relationship with me that brought her, or just like age and life stage. But yeah, I think we're both introverted. But like when I took Myers-Briggs and like after college, I was like 100% introvert. And even now I'm like 100% introvert. But yeah, so our first impressions weren't the best, and yeah, we just kind of didn't get along, and she always thought I was just like this sad guy, and I was such a buzzkill. Like just me just coming into the room made everybody like sad, like like you know,
one of those like the person who like kills the vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, like but for her, the reason why she was so persistent with me, you know, against her wishes, was like, she said she told me that when she was in Tennessee, she was by herself at the, you know, for her internship, and she didn't know anybody. But so for her, she also felt very lonely and sad and miserable. But for her, she knew that it was a very temporary thing, like 3-month internship for the summer, right? So for her, there was like the light at the end of the tunnel. And even then, she was very lonely and sad. And then so when she saw me, kind of in this similar situation in this new city, I don't know anybody, but for me, there was no end in sight, right? Because it's not like my job had a contract or anything like that. And so she said that's why she initially started feeling like pity for me, like, oh man, this guy needs a friend. And I kept like rejecting her and like, you know, being really mean, and to her too, like she said like she hated like trying to hang out with me, but like she says she just felt this like tug, because like she's felt that kind of loneliness, and she like kind of took it upon herself to try to plug me in to everyone else, because she understood that loneliness.
Yeah.
And but like, she did not like doing it though. So that's how I guess our friendship started. And then, we started talking online, and it turned out that we had like very similar taste in music. And so that got us talking. But so we were like, we were friends. And then but then after that conversation with Joe, I completely like turned around, and I guess I started being like nicer to her, and just like my personality changed, and I think she started like opening up.
Sorry. So for the timeline, you met her once she came back from her internship at the end of summer. So like,
yeah, like it was like late July, I think.
Late July.
Yeah.
And then, so that's like 5 months from then, or like 6 months from then. I'm sorry, 4 months from then is like when you had the conversation with Joe. So she had to endure 4 months of the arrogant, like, sad Joojin. Okay.
And then there was this one conversation that's particularly memorable. Is that I think we were just like grabbing some late night snacks at QT gas station, and I forget what she said, but I was like such a hole because I forgot what she said, but I basically told her off, and I said like, dude, like why do you care so much? Like, I don't want to go to these things. I don't stop inviting me to these things. And I told her like, you know what? Within a year, I'm getting the hell out of here. And when I get the hell out of here, I'm not going to remember you. I'm not going to remember Joe. I'm not going to remember anybody here. And I'm not going to care about you. So stop. Like
wow.
And I was like, in retrospect, that's such a dick thing to say. But I was just like in that place. Like I was being so defensive and so like, not investing in it, and that hurt her a lot. And like I remember like she was like crying. She was like very upset.
Yeah.
And even then I didn't care. I was like, why are you crying? like stop. Like we've only known each other for like a couple. Like we don't even know each other. Like and then I forgot at what point in our relationship that happened. But like she was super upset by that. And then I don't really remember clearly how our relationship was immediately after that. But then, I think from what I understand, she continued to be persistent because, of that tug. Like he's being super mean, but like, it's just because he's in a very sad, very dark place. And so I think she reluctantly kept like being persistent. And then I think thankfully shortly after that, that was a conversation with Joe, and then I was like, oh, I'm like better now. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. No, you did tell me this last time, but I totally forgot. So it's even crazier to me that after that somehow you guys started dating.
Yeah.
So what happened? So was it as easy as just being nicer to her, and then
I don't know. I mean maybe you need to have Angie come talk to me here, but I don't know how exactly that. Like, to me, that felt gradual. I mean, I just started opening up. We started hanging out a lot more. And what was nice was, so, because I was so lonely, I actually, like, invested a lot of money into, like, games. I wasn't too big on games before I moved here, but I bought, like, at the time, I think it was, like, PS3, and, like, Grand Theft Auto 5 just came out.
Oh, yeah?
And so, I love playing those kind of things, especially because I had so much free time. And then how we started like connecting is that, so Angie had 2 brothers and like 3 guy cousins. And so she grew up like watching her older brothers and cousins like play video games. And so for me, as I played the video games, when we were just platonic friends, I had an audience. And she would like come over and like watch, and she would have fun doing it, which is I think very atypical of a girl, right? Like they don't care if you're playing Grand Theft Auto and whatever. And I feel like stereotypically girls like kind of like frown upon that, and like they think it's like not the cool thing to do or whatever.
Yeah.
But and then I remember when I started thinking like, Angie's not bad. When I was doing like stupid things on Grand Theft Auto, I was like, like you can punch like civilians, and I think to
like
any
money.
I think to any like normal young adult woman, they would be like, why would you do that? But then when I punched like a grandma on the street, like she would laugh out loud, and that brought me so much joy. So I'm like, you're enjoying this too? Oh, great, because I'm having a lot of fun, and I would like punch all these like people for no reason, and and steal their money in the game, or like run over people. And I think like any other girl would have been, oh my gosh, stop, like that's so, you know. But then she was just like cracking up.
Wait. So this was before you guys had started dating?
Yeah, this was before. This was more like during the. I think this is when I started seeing her more than a friend. Yeah, like this is like kind of that transitional, like, huh. It is fun to hang out with her. Like,
well, then I still feel like I'm missing a piece. Cause how did you get from like I'm getting the hell out of here, like I'm gonna forget you to like it's suddenly like inviting her over and like playing video games and stuff even before you're dating.
I don't know how we started hanging out, but yeah, I think once that I think so again. I think the baseline is always like the conversation with Joe, but once that happened, I think I started to see like, wow, Angie's making a great deal of effort
to
to reach out to me, to always invite me to things, to bring me to like whatever. And so I think I just simply started reciprocating her efforts. And so at the time she graduated one semester later, so during my first summer here or my first fall here, she was still in college at Georgia Tech. And so like I would drive like down Tech to like hang out with her, and like she would like talk about like, you know, she's like doing finals or studying for something or whatever. I'll like come drive down and hang out with her. And like to me, I think at the time, I think it was more like, oh, she's my only friend. so and I know that she's made a lot of effort, so I'm gonna return that effort. And so and I think that's also when I think she kind of started to see like, oh, like this guy's driving. Because at the time I lived in Smyrna. So it's like, 20-minute drive down to Tech. So it's not like too close, but it's definitely like out of my way to go down there.
Right.
And so I think she started to realize, oh, this guy's like coming down just to like hang out with me. And so I think that's when things started kind of, to be honest, I don't know who initially thought of each other more than just a platonic friend. I would like to say it happened around the same time, but she always jokes that I started liking her first, and like,
of course,
yeah. And so I think that's how kind of that transition happened.
Oh wow. Okay, so did you think she was like your only friend because everyone at church had pretty much stopped trying to like?
No, it's not that, but I think I was able to click with her a lot more than some of the other folks. Like I know some of the guys there, like they were really into sports and like guns and stuff, which is great, but like that's just like not my thing. So I couldn't really connect with them. And then like and then for her, like again, we started connecting as friends like with similar music tastes. And so it just kind of started out as like, oh, I sent her a YouTube link. It's like, oh, hey, check this out. And then she would, you know, reciprocate and like, oh, hey, check out this song. And then so that's how we kind of like started talking a lot online. And then just kind of grew from there. She loves eating, and I love eating too. And so we like ate together a lot. And I think, you know, that's where a lot of that relationship building and like fellowship like happens. Even though when we eat, like we don't talk, we just like eat everything. Because we're so focused on the eating, we like even now when we eat, like we don't like talk. We just focus on the food.
Oh, that's why you're such a good chef. Like you, like the times you come over, you like prepare food for us, and so it was so good.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, it's we just connected on like all the food and the music, and then I think once that like foundational relationship it was established, you know, we started hanging out at she started coming over because like she lived in Marietta, and so when she was commuting, so on her way home, like my home was like on the way because I was in like Smyrna, so she would just drop by, and again it was like totally platonic, and it was literally just like her vegging on the couch while I'm playing GTA. And that's kind of how it started. But then, you know, again I started to realize, oh, like it's fun. It's fun to be around her because she laughs when I do stupid things on Grand Theft Auto.
Every guy's dream.
And so I think that's when we started hanging out more and more and kind of evolved from there.
Wow. And then that went on to become marriage, and you guys have 2 kids now.
Yeah.
That is, what a crazy story. It's not, you didn't just start from 0 with Angie. You started from like -10.
Yeah.
Somehow through this transformative conversation with Joe,
Yeah.
you're able to really change the trajectory of your life, right?
Yeah. That's the power of Christ.
Yeah. No, like legit, I think that's something that a lot of, at least the pastors I've seen, because Joe is like a different breed. He's
Yeah,
built
yeah.
different.
Yeah, he is.
His level of like focus on the mission is so concentrated that when he sees like something he needs to do, like he'll just go all in.
Yeah.
Like some pastors might be like, well, maybe this isn't the best way to approach this guy, like emotionally speaking.
Yeah.
But like I can only think of Joe, of all the pastors I know, who would say like, why don't you act like you love God then? Like so I mean I think there's a lesson to be learned there. There's maybe for some people like that tough love is necessary to bring about character change. And he like, you might even say that you can credit him to your relationship to your wife, right?
Oh no, for sure. Yeah. And to kind of build upon that, so that conversation with Joe happened in November, and I asked her out in April of the following year. And during the couple months between those two, I remember, so coming out of college ministry, like, at college ministry, people, like the pastors there, they kind of try to avoid people dating each other. Because like when you're in college, you're like very hormonal and stupid, and they don't want to have like, they don't want people to have sex and like all that.
Yeah.
So they're very careful about like dating within church and college. And so, they prefer like courtship, right? So that's been kind of like embedded in my brain for the past 4 years. And so when I started getting closer with Angie and Joe, and when I thought it was kind of time to like take that relationship to the next level and start dating, I remember asking Joe like, oh, Pastor Joe, like I think I want to start a relationship with her. Like I've been praying about it, and and so I kind of went to him for like spiritual guidance. Like I wanted to see what kind of wisdom he could bestow upon me, right? And then this guy, he's so blunt, right? He's like, do you like Angie? And at the time, by the time I was having that conversation with Joe, Angie and I, we've already kind of established that we like each other, but we weren't like officially dating. So I go to Joe in private and like tell him like, hey, I've been praying about it. I want to ask Angie out. La, 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 la. What do you think? And then he's like, do you like Angie? And I was like, yeah. It's like, does Angie like you? It's like, yeah. So what's the problem? Like he made it so like simple. He's like, then ask her out. And I was like, well, but like what do you think from like biblically? Like, I'm like just trying to like get this like spiritual wisdom from him. And he's like, doesn't matter. Just like, it's like, if you like her and she likes you, why not? And I was like, okay, well, you're right, I guess. And then so I like asked her out, and then that's how it started. And so yeah, his like bluntness and the Joe-ness, I guess, like helped me again to make that next step. And yeah, it was definitely like his he was definitely a big catalyst in like moving that relationship along.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. I'm actually trying to get Joe to come back on my podcast again. I had him on as a guest one time, a long time ago. I'm texting him like, hey, come on my podcast, because he has this like 2-week break now that he has. So it would be great if he came on for the next episode and he was able to speak on some of the things.
The funny thing is though, like to me, they are life-changing moments, but to him, because we would talk, because we're still friends, and we sometimes like joke about the past and stuff, and to him, like he doesn't remember. Like he's like, I said that? I was like, yeah, and you changed my life. And he's like, oh, well, good, I guess. So like he like doesn't remember some of the things that he said to me or Angie. I don't know if he remembers the night in Sandy Springs with the pizza and me crying and asking me that, but from what I recall, like he doesn't really remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, but so for him, it was kind of just routine things.
Yeah, it's like a day in the life of Pastor Joe.
Right,
yeah.
But it had like seriously, like legitimately trajectory changing impact on your life.
Yeah.
Because without that conversation, you probably would be in a different city by now, right? Like,
yeah, for sure. And I think, I think if without that conversation, I think even to this day, I consider like that conversation with Joe in Sandy Springs to be like like rebirth. Because I mean, I always consider myself Christian, but like that's when I like truly realized like if I want to call myself a Christian, I need to act like one. By loving others and like trying to do all that stuff. And so yeah, that was definitely a pivotal point in my life.
You know what's interesting? Like hearing that this whole thing, it sounds like to me you had kind of a two-pronged attack. Like the empathetic, more emotionally coddling or emotionally supportive side from Angie.
Yeah.
And the more direct, straightforward, like kind of splash of reality from Joe.
Yeah.
And I feel like both those things are like super vital, right? Because if you only got the spiritual slap in the face from Joe and you didn't have that someone who kind of understood you from Angie, then like honestly, who knows what would have happened, right? Even though you were nicer, like maybe you would have still felt depressed, maybe like but then with just Angie's like empathetic efforts to reach out and not that spiritual slap from Joe, who knows how many more times you would have made Angie cry, right? Right? So wow, like I think that was a really great like I can see it as an outsider having heard your story that it seems like so perfect that those two things happen simultaneously to like,
for sure,
bring about this life change for you.
Yeah, and like I think like I mean not to be like cliche like but I definitely feel like it's like I felt at the time like I was meant to be there like then and there, like the time and place like in terms of like being in Atlanta in this weird depressive arrogant state meeting Joe and Angie and Grace and everyone and even like just the I feel like if I came in to Atlanta without that pride and arrogance, I feel like my life would also have been very different. Like I needed a place to fall from to really have this rude awakening of like what it means to be like a Christian. Cause like, if I was never in this like high horse to begin with, I don't know if that fall would have been as impactful as it had been. Yeah.
Wow. So many life lessons from your story. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to circle back on was like smoking, right? What do you think as a Christian? What do you think about smoking for believers?
I think that's an interesting question. For me, it's just like,
well, because like culturally, right? We assume like, oh, smoking. I mean, smoking is bad for your health for sure.
Yeah.
And so, like, we grew up saying like being taught by our parents, don't you ever smoke, and like smoking at church especially is bad, you know. But like spiritually speaking, like it definitely doesn't disqualify you from being a Christian.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, having been a smoker for several years, it's more of it's not the smoke in and of itself, but it's the physical addiction to it. So I think the fact that I am in constant need of the cigarette, like when I'm stressed, cigarette. When I'm depressed, cigarette. When I'm excited, cigarette. Like when I'm celebrating, cigarette. After a nice bowl of pho, cigarette. Like so, like for me, it was more of that addiction that I think is the sinful part.
Right.
And for me, I think one other thing is like especially in college ministry, when there are younger underclassmen like potentially looking up at you, if they see me smoking, like I have potential to like lead them astray or similarly to how I felt when I was in high school, turn people away from God and church. It's like, oh, this guy says he's Christian, but he's smoking, which is typically associated to be, bad.
Right.
And so I don't want that that hypocrisy to come off and potentially deter other folks from, seeking Christ or following Christ. And so I think because of that is a good enough reason to stay away from it. Yeah. So that you're not pushing other like maybe not as mature Christians away from God by you doing that. And so yeah, I think that's how I see it. But yeah, personally, I think smoking in and of itself isn't bad. Like if I had the physical ability and the mental capacity to smoke one cigarette and like never pick it up again, like I don't think that's an issue. But yeah, it's like the addictive part that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just didn't want to discourage anybody who is a smoker from like trying to go to church.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, it doesn't disqualify you from coming
Right,
to church at all, guys. So I mean, and look how Joojin's life turned out.
Yeah. I mean, I reeked of smoke when I came to church. Like, I didn't try to hide it. And you know, thankfully Joe and all the other folks were willing to embrace me, you know, regardless of my, you know, stench.
So do you have any advice for people who might be in kind of a similar life stage that you were in back in 2013?
Like in terms of smoking specifically, or
No, in terms of just how, like, because not everyone's gonna have a Pastor Joe to wake them up, right?
Yeah.
Like, so do you have any advice on things that they themselves can do to kind of improve?
I don't know, because I feel like it's not. I feel like I was always forced to go down a path by external factors. So I don't know if it's anything that I've personally like initiated on my own. But yeah, it's just, I don't know if I can have any like practical tips or wisdom to share on that regard.
Then let's do this. If you're listening and you feel like you're not really fitting in with church, and you feel like you're better than everyone at church, and everyone at church is a loser, then this is your slap in the face. Why don't you act like you love God?
Yeah, and I guess it's also like, you're not that great.
You're not
like,
that great.
Like, you think you're great, but you're not.
Yeah, trust us.
Yeah.
You don't know. You may not know who you are, but trust us when we say you're not that
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, well, yeah, we're like at the hour mark. So, do you have any?
Right.
Yeah. Where time flies, right?
Yeah.
Any last thoughts that you wanted to share about your story?
No, not really. I mean, but I guess I do hope it inspires or encourages people that listen to it, because yeah, I came in from a very, very, very dark place. Again, I was like to the point where I was thinking suicidal thoughts, and so but now I'm happily married, 2 kids in the suburbs. So you know, if you are also in that state, like, it's doable, but only through like the power of Christ. And you know, it's not something that I can't do on my own, and something that I know I didn't do on my own. So really just thankful for the community that I had, that God had placed, the people that God had placed around me to help me get back up and just really get my head out of my butt to that point. And so I think for me, what I'm most thankful for is that when that slap came, I had enough awareness to know that, wow, I need to self-reflect. Because I think it could have also gone completely opposite direction. If he said that, I could have just walked away like, F you. You don't know me, dude. F you.
Yeah.
You know, I could have done that. But thankfully, like, I don't know what it is, maybe the Holy Spirit, but like, it allowed me to actually be receptive to such a blunt comment by this almost stranger. And so hopefully, yeah, that if you are in a similar place, that I guess ask for the Spirit to just be with you and allow you to have an open heart and ear and eyes to see like what God has provided around you.
Yeah. Man, what a great way to sign off. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you were as encouraged and inspired by Joojin's story. I mean, it's mind-blowing, the transformation that he made. So, to be able to see that, it really does inspire awe. So, yeah, thanks so much for sharing. And
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And thank you guys again for listening. And we'll talk to you guys next time.